A woman under a bright light. A voice reads her vitals, pressure normal, pulse normal, all normal. Then it leans in, how are you still alive? She doesn't answer. This is Dr. Annika Kask, and she is the calmest, medically perfect person to ever terrify a room full of professionals. It's day 42, session 72, which tells you they've been asking her the same question for a very long time and getting nowhere. The interrogator wants to know what she saw, what they showed her. Annika just looks at him like he's the one who needs answers, which, to be fair, he is. So she tells him how she's still alive, philosophically, which is the most annoying possible way to answer that question. She says we're a flawed species, impossibly fragile, self-destructive, superstitious, driven by fear and by love. Barely able to survive on our tiny blue rock, she adds, let alone out in the endless black ocean of the universe. The interrogator wanted coordinates and got a meditation on mortality, and honestly that's foreshadowing because this whole story starts with a billionaire monologue and it ends with one too. And here's the thing about that opening answer, every word of it is a clue she doesn't know she's giving. Flawed, fragile, self-destructive. Driven by fear, by love. She thinks she's describing why humanity is doomed. She's actually describing the exact 6 weaknesses that a watching universe would use to decide whether we're worth wiping out. But that comes later. For now, she's just a woman who answers a yes or no question with a sermon, and the interrogator's pen hovers, waiting for an actual sentence that never arrives. But first, the wound. Annika thinks back to being a kid when her mother brought home a baby and asked if she was ready to meet her little sister. Annika, all of 3 years old, looks at this tiny human and says hi to Clara, and when her mother asks if they should keep her, Annika gives the verdict. Yeah. Big of her. The 2 girls grow up inseparable, bunk beds, races for the top bunk, the works. Clara asks the kind of question kids ask at the worst possible time, which is what's past the last planet, and Annika tells her, infinity, everything, anything. Remember that line. It comes back to Reculator. Then one day the warmth just stops. Glass shatters somewhere in the house. Annika is screaming for her mom, monitors are beeping, and her mother slips away right in front of both girls. And that's the lesson that builds Annika into who she becomes. Love is fragile, loss is permanent, and the universe doesn't ask permission. She grows up to point telescopes at the dark instead of dealing with any of that, which is a very expensive way to avoid therapy. There's one more childhood fragment that matters, and it's so quiet you'd miss it. Little Clara, cupping some tiny living thing in her hands, a bug, a baby bird, something with a heartbeat, looks up and announces very seriously that they have to let it go. It needs to breathe. A throwaway line from a kid who just wants something small to be free. Lock that one away too. In about 2 hours of story, it's going to come back as the key that unlocks the entire alien apocalypse, which is a heavy lift for a sentence said by a 7-year-old holding a bug. She gets good at it too. So good that she becomes the first person on Earth to photograph dark matter, the stuff you're not supposed to be able to see, the thing everyone agreed was unphotographable. Annika photographed it. This makes her exactly the kind of person a billionaire wants in a room. Enter the billionaire. Sam Houston, a Texan with a fortune he made in solar energy and the easy confidence of a man who owns several horizons, is up on a stage giving a talk about the future of the species. His big idea, what if biological life is just a phase? What if we evolve past it? He says our present is already post-biological, which is a wild thing to say to a crowd that drove there in cars. Someone asks the obvious question, is there other life out there? And Sam doesn't hedge for a second. He calls it a stone-cold certainty. And Sam isn't some basement crank in a tinfoil hat. He's a man who made his first billion in solar energy, which means his entire fortune is built on harvesting a signal from a giant ball of plasma 93 million miles away. He has been making a living off light from the sky his whole career. So when he says alien intelligence is a certainty, he says it the way other men say the mortgage is due, bored, certain, and already 3 steps ahead of you. The crowd thinks they're watching a visionary. They're watching a recruiter. Then he does the billionaire thing and name drops a genius in the audience, Annika Kask, the first person to photograph dark matter. The crowd applauds. Annika does the polite scientist nod of someone who would rather be anywhere else. Afterwards, Sam corners her and he's got a confession. He didn't fly out just to give a talk. He wants to offer her a job. He starts poking at her motives, asking why she does what she does, and she gives him the honest answer. She just wants to know what's out there. Sam tilts his head and asks the question that's basically the whole movie. Why not down here? She has no idea yet how much she should run. It's a small question, and it does something nasty to her face, because Annika has spent her entire adult life pointing her instruments as far away from down here as physics allows. Down here is where her mother slipped away. Down here is where things break and don't come back. Up there is clean, infinite, and safely impersonal. Sam, who has clearly read her like a parking sign, just smiles and lets the question sit. He's not offering her a job. He's offering her a reason to stop running and dressing it up as the opposite. The pitch is small and reasonable sounding, which is how the dangerous ones always start. A 1-year contract, a little lab on a remote island in the Caribbean. Annika, hearing the words remote island and find aliens in the same breath, balks. She's a serious scientist, not a guy with a tinfoil hat scanning the skies for little green men. And that's when Sam delivers the line that rearranges her whole brain. He tells her she can forget the little green men, forget hunting for a needle in a haystack, because the whole haystack is made out of needles. We're not alone in the dark. In fact, the darkness has been our company all along. That's a great line. It's also the kind of line that should make you check the exits. Annika, being a scientist with an unhealthy relationship to curiosity, instead packs a bag. You can practically hear the door of her better judgment click shut. Every instinct she has is screaming that remote islands funded by billionaires who give TED talks about transcending the body are not, historically, where careers go to flourish. But Sam said the one combination of words she was never built to resist, that the dark isn't empty, that it's been keeping her company all along, and to a woman who has spent 30 years homesick for an answer, that's not a sales pitch. That's a love letter. She's going. On the way in, she meets the other new recruit, a guy who introduces himself with the modesty of a man who is definitely lying. He says he's an electronics engineer. Annika, who knows exactly who he is, laughs and says Charlie Kaminsky calling himself an electronics engineer is like Stephen Hawking saying he teaches a little math. Because Charlie is the CTO of Gateway Labs, a genuine heavyweight, and he's been hired to come check out some new toys Sam is building. And here's the crack in the foundation, the irony the whole story is built on. Sam promised Annika they were absolutely not hunting aliens. Sam promised Charlie they absolutely were. 2 recruits, 2 opposite pitches, 1 billionaire who tells everybody whatever gets them on the plane. Charlie shrugs about it. Sam promised him they were, so as far as he's concerned, they were. And you have to admire the engineering of the lie. Sam didn't tell 2 different people 2 different stories by accident. He calibrated each one to the exact shape of each person's hope. He told the cautious humanist there was nothing scary out there, so she'd come without fear. He told the eager optimist there was everything scary out there, so he'd come with excitement. Same plane, same island, same machine, 2 recruits who each think they're on a completely different expedition. By the time they figure out which version was true, the truth will be the least of anyone's problems. They fly out to the island, and it's gorgeous in the way that makes you nervous, because nothing this beautiful is ever free. A caretaker named Solomon welcomes them, mentions there's a staff of 9 or 10 total, and explains the whole operation runs under one Dr. Perry Glassner. Both Annika and Charlie light up like fans at a meet and greet, muttering that the super friends are finally uniting. They have no idea they've signed up to babysit a lit fuse. Real quick, a couple of things worth knowing. Sam's a composite of a very specific modern type, the messianic tech billionaire who funds blue sky science less for the science and more for the legacy. Annika's first to photograph dark matter isn't real-world possible. Dark matter is famously invisible, detected only by its gravity, but in here it's her superpower, the thing that makes her able to see signals nobody else can. And keep that childhood line, what's past the last planet, infinity, in your back pocket. The whole ending hangs on it. Okay, the island. Meeting Perry Glassner is less an introduction and more an ambush. He's gaunt, wired, paranoid, running on a cocktail of brilliance and amphetamines, and the first thing he does is test Annika by demanding to know her purpose. Before she can finish a sentence, he's already decided she was sent by Sam to spy on him, to be, in his exact words, the bruise that finally finishes him. He's got a whole credo about it. You shatter a bone and it heals, but you bruise trust and it never comes back. Lovely man. Great energy for a guy you're sharing an island with. Perry's view of the entire operation is that it's a monument to one man's ego. This isn't a lab, he sneers, it's a shrine to Sam's overwhelming hubris. Most billionaires buy yachts or football teams. Sam wants to buy ideas, legacies, a place in the history books. Perry says all this while standing inside the lab Sam built him, which is the kind of self-awareness that comes pre-broken. And to be clear, Perry is not wrong about Sam, he's just the last person who should be saying it. This is a man who took a billionaire's money, a billionaire's island, and a billionaire's payroll to build the most expensive machine on Earth, and his thanks is to stand in the middle of it, calling the whole thing a shrine to ego. He's like a man eating a free lobster while loudly reviewing the restaurant 1 star for the principle of the thing. The difference is that Perry's contempt is the only honest thing on the island, which is exactly why everyone finds him so unbearable. Then he takes Annika into the heart of it. A computer voice welcomes them to the tuning lab, and Perry explains why he needs her specifically. He wants her dark matter overlay algorithm, the exact technique that let her see the invisible, applied to whatever he's hearing. And before he shows her, he gives the lecture, because of course he does. SETI, he says, scans radio waves across maybe 1/10,000,000th of the night sky using hilariously outdated technology. He compares it to scooping one little bowl of water out of the ocean, finding no whales in the bowl, and triumphantly concluding that whales don't exist. He is infuriatingly correct. This is the Perry experience in a nutshell. He is rude, he is unstable, he is almost certainly going to get everyone in catastrophic trouble, and he is also right about basically everything. SETI really has been listening to a sliver of the sky through the cosmic equivalent of a tin can on a string, and concluding the universe is quiet. Perry's point is that quiet is just another word for not listening properly. He's been listening properly. That's the problem. Nobody warns you that the man who finally hears the universe is going to be the worst dinner guest you've ever had. What Perry built instead doesn't listen to radio waves at all. It listens through quantum entanglement, pair 2 photons, separate them across any distance, and a change to one instantly registers in the other. Faster than light, no waiting. Annika immediately objects that this breaks physics, and Perry, delighted, corrects her. The machine doesn't force anything to change. It just hears when someone else does. It only listens. He built it 6 years ago, alone in his basement on amphetamines, a sentence he delivers like a charming anecdote rather than a cry for help. And now the floor drops out. Perry tells them the real work is already done. He has Annika read off the scan radius, how far away this thing is reaching to pick up its signal. She expects light years. She reads a couple of feet, right here. Charlie says it out loud because somebody has to. He's doing it right here in this room. Take a second with how completely this guts the entire premise. For a century, the smartest people alive have aimed dishes the size of stadiums at the deepest pits of space, straining for a whisper from 1,000 light years out, building careers and religions around the question of whether anyone is out there. And Perry's machine just quietly reported that the answer is yes, they're a couple of feet away, please mind the gap. We weren't being ignored. We were standing in the middle of the conversation with our fingers in our ears, scanning the horizon for a stranger who was already breathing on the back of our neck. So they run her algorithm on the chaos. Sort by datasets, sort by exponents, sort by primes, overlay everything. And the noise, the static they assumed was nothing, resolves into a clean, rhythmic pulse. A heartbeat with intention. Annika stares at it and says the thing nobody in the history of science has ever gotten to say and mean. It's a signal. They're talking. Sit with the gut punch because it reframes everything humans have ever done. For decades, we aimed telescopes at galaxies millions of light years away, scanning the deep dark for smoke signals from strangers. And the entire time, the conversation was happening right next to us, around us, through us. It's quantum, so it isn't coming from one far-off place, it's everywhere all at once, woven into the room. We've been screaming into the void looking for company, and the company was leaning on the doorframe the whole time, mildly amused. Charlie processing lands on the existential bill that comes due. It means we're not alone, we're not the center of anything, we're not special. Annika asks the only question left, is it real? Perry shrugs and tells her that's literally why she's here. She's the one who checks his math. Then he introduces the rest of the machine, the part with a name, Little Myth. It's not just an ear, it's a mouth. It's the device built to talk back. But there's a catch, and the catch is the whole tragedy in miniature. Perry's hardware can listen, but it can't reproduce the quantum signatures needed to actually transmit. It can hear the conversation, but it can't speak. And Charlie, sweet optimistic Charlie, raises his hand and says the most dangerous 4 words anyone says all year. He can. He's already done it in his own lab. Somewhere in the universe, a fuse just got a little shorter. And nobody in the room registers it as a threat because Charlie says it the way you'd offer to fix someone's Wi-Fi. He's not bragging, he's not scheming, he's just genuinely helpful, the human embodiment of a guy who reads the warning label on the fireworks as a list of features. Perry built a mouth that physically cannot speak. Charlie, smiling, has just announced he packed a spare set of vocal cords. The single hardest engineering problem standing between humanity and announcing itself to a hostile cosmos turns out to be already solved, sitting in a lab back home, because a nice man couldn't help himself. The island, meanwhile, keeps revealing its sad furniture. Annika meets Perry's doctor and handler, Svi, who's been stuck out here 3 years dispensing his medication and his moods, and his quiet, withdrawn daughter, Lucy. And she learns the thing that explains the whole haunted man act. 4 years ago, a house fire took his wife and son while he was self-medicated in an outbuilding 50 feet away, too far gone to reach them in time. Lucy was spared only because she was at a sleepover that night. Svi sums Perry up in one devastating line: he knows humans matter in theory, but not in practice. Just ask Lucy. That's the man holding the only mouth that can talk to the cosmos. And the worst part is you start to understand him. Perry isn't a villain in the K-Pen monologue sense. He's a man who decided after the fire that caring about people up close is just signing up to lose them. So he moved his entire heart out to a safe distance. Say, the scale of galaxies, where nothing he loves can be set on fire 50 feet away while he fails to reach it. He talks to the universe because the universe can't break his heart. He just never noticed that handing the universe a microphone might break everyone else's. The debate over whether to use that mouth becomes the spine of everything, and it splits cleanly into 2 philosophies that cannot both be right. Charlie is the optimist, the true believer. Intelligence, he insists, can't be hostile. Intelligence doesn't waste, it learns. He's spent his career on this faith, building bionic eyes, dreaming of uploading human minds into something more durable, a container that could survive inside a black hole. He games out every reason to be afraid of what's out there and comes up empty every time. He literally can't find anything to be scared of. His motto, which he repeats like a prayer, it's safer than hope. It's a beautiful, terrible little slogan, and it's exactly backwards, which is the whole tragedy of Charlie. He thinks he's the brave one because he refuses to be afraid. But refusing to be afraid of a fire doesn't make the fire safer, it just makes you the first one in. Charlie has spent a career building bionic eyes for people who couldn't see, dreaming of pouring human minds into bodies that could survive inside a black hole. And somewhere in all that optimism, he stopped being able to imagine that the unknown might not love him back. He's not fearless. He's just never met the thing that should scare him, yet. Annika is the humanist, and she argues from the wound. So much of who she is, she says, came from painful experiences. We are our flaws and our mistakes, the whole bruised package. Life is fragile. Fear, she insists, is the thing that keeps us safe. 2 brilliant people, one terrified of the dark and one in love with it, and the fate of the species rides on which of them is right. And the cruel joke buried in all of this is that they're both right in the worst possible combination. Charlie's right that the intelligence they've found isn't hostile. Annika's right that talking to it will doom everyone anyway. The thing they reach doesn't want to hurt us, but the act of reaching does the damage, because the universe is bigger than the one polite neighbor who answered. 2 correct people, 1 catastrophic outcome, and not nearly enough time for either of them to realize the other wasn't the one to argue with. Perry naturally has a parable, and it's a threat wearing a sweater. Over dinner, he describes how horse breeders pen a goat in with a lonely thoroughbred as a companion animal. Most horses tolerate the goat, but some horses decide the goat is an invader and tear right through it, and the breeder just shrugs and buys another goat. He lets that land. He is calling Annika and Charlie the goats. He is fairly clearly the horse. Then he loses it entirely and roars that they're not waiting, not a week, not a day, to talk back. It is genuinely one of the all-time great ways to threaten two colleagues over dinner. Most people, if they wanted to imply they might tear you apart and request your replacement, would at least have the decency to do it subtextually. Perry builds a whole farm metaphor, casts everyone, explains the horse's psychology, lands the grisly part, and then drops the mask entirely and starts shouting about timelines. By the end of the meal, Annika and Charlie have learned two things: the signal is real, and the man in charge of answering it considers them livestock. Wonderful island, 5 stars. Would not return. And Sam, ever the closer, fills in the last cold detail for his two new hires. There's another reason they're both on this island, he says, and it kicks in the moment Perry stops being functional. Charlie, quicker than he lets on, finishes the thought. We get it. We're the replacements. Welcome to the island. The genius is unstable, the optimist has the missing piece, and the humanist is outvoted. Nothing could possibly go wrong. Real quick, the science here is doing a clever cheat. Quantum entanglement is real, but it famously can't send information faster than light. The movie's whole premise hangs on a listening-only loophole that sidesteps that rule just enough to feel plausible at 1 a.m. Perry's tragedy and Annika's tragedy are deliberate mirrors. Both lost the people they loved to a moment they couldn't stop, which is why one of them wants to slam the door and the other stopped caring whether doors exist. And Little Myth, a device whose only job is to make noise, is named like the smallest, most harmless thing in the world. Hold that thought. Annika spends the next stretch trying to be the brakes on a car that has no interest in brakes. On the beach with Charlie, she lays out the danger of talking back in the plainest terms. The second we transmit, they'll know we're here immediately from anywhere. Charlie, congenitally sunny, treats this like a fun puzzle. Resources. The universe is full of them, no need to raid ours. Weapons. Why would an intelligence that advanced bother? Food, come on. He swats away every doomsday scenario like flies at a picnic, and the picnic is the survival of mankind. And the maddening thing is that his logic is airtight right up until the exact point where it isn't. Resources. Space is lousy with them, no advanced civilization is crossing the void for our particular rocks and water. Weapons. An intelligence that can fold spacetime doesn't need our uranium. Conquest. What's the upside? Every individual brick of Charlie's argument is solid. He just builds the whole wall around one unexamined assumption, that everyone out there reasons the way he does, and Annika keeps pointing at that assumption, and Charlie keeps not hearing her, because to a man who has never been afraid, fear just sounds like a math error. In the interrogation room, the official keeps circling back to this exact failure, demanding to know why she didn't stop Kaminsky. And Annika gives the answer that's been quietly breaking her for 42 days. He never told her his plan because he knew that if he did, she'd try to stop him. Charlie didn't believe intelligence could be hostile, so he made sure the one person who might have saved everyone was looking the other way. It's the quietest betrayal in the film, and it's done entirely out of love. Charlie doesn't lie to Annika because he's bad. He lies to her because he's so completely certain he's right that her objection registers as an obstacle to be routed around rather than a warning to be heeded. He genuinely believes he's protecting her from her own fear. He's so busy saving her from being scared that he forgets to consider she might be correct. The most dangerous person in any room is rarely the cruel one. It's the kind one who's decided he knows better than you do for your own good. Because Charlie was always going to do it. He had the missing piece, the ability to reproduce the quantum signatures Perry's hardware couldn't, and a faith that no harm could possibly come of it. So he quietly fixes the machine, runs the initiation sequence, and gets the cheerful little confirmation that the impossible is now possible. We can talk back now. 3 words that should come with a planetary warning label. Perry takes over for the actual message because if humanity is going to introduce itself to the cosmos, it's going to do it at 1:24 in the morning, run by an unstable genius on amphetamines. But credit where it's due, the method is genuinely elegant. No language because language is parochial. Just two things any intelligence anywhere would recognize: the speed of light as the unit of measure and prime numbers for the rhythm. He takes the sequence the signal repeats most often and he repeats it back 10 times, scaled by primes and the speed of light. Translated out of math, the message says exactly 3 things and they're almost unbearably humble. We've heard you. We're logical. And we're here. And look at how proud they are of it, which is the part that'll haunt you on the rewatch. This is humanity at its absolute best. No flags, no weapons, no demands, just 2 universal constants and a gesture of pure reason, the most dignified hello our species has ever composed. We didn't shout. We didn't threaten. We tapped out the cosmic equivalent of we come in peace, and we did the prime numbers to prove we mean it. It is genuinely beautiful. It is also, as we are about to learn, the precise informational equivalent of standing up in a pitch-black room full of strangers and announcing your name, your address, and the fact that you can be reasoned with. The politeness is the catastrophe. Perry, finger hovering over the button to announce our species to infinity, delivers a eulogy for the whole effort because he genuinely expects nothing. There's no war of the worlds coming, he says. No grand enlightenment. Just a thundering silence because we simply do not matter. Annika reasonably asks why he'd build the most advanced machine in history to send a message he's certain no one will answer. Perry's answer is the bleakest 2 words available to prove it. He wants the silence on the record. This is peak Perry, a man so committed to his own despair that he'll build the most sophisticated instrument in human history purely to confirm that the instrument was pointed at nothing. He doesn't want to be wrong exactly. He wants to be alone in a way that's finally official, stamped, and notarized by the universe itself, so the loneliness stops being his fault and becomes a law of physics. He sends the most hopeful message a species has ever sent while privately betting his whole soul that no one's home. It's the saddest thing a genius can do, spend everything you have proving the thing you most fear is true. He fires it. The message goes out, carrying humanity's return address into the dark. And for a moment, Perry looks vindicated, nothing, just like he predicted. Annika, done arguing with people who treat extinction as a thought experiment, gets Sam on the phone and quits on the spot. She's out. She's going home. The universe takes about a minute to disagree. And it does not disagree gently. It does not send a follow-up ping or a polite thank you. It reaches out and, for the length of a coffee break, switches off the entire technological nervous system of the planet Earth, just to make a point about who's actually been running the room. The power dies. Backup generators stutter on, the whole system drops offline, a siren starts to wail across the island. And then the outside world begins bleeding in through the only thing still working, old analog radio. The news is impossible. For roughly 8 minutes, every piece of electronics on the entire planet went dark at once. Every satellite, every grid, every hospital, every aircraft, every traffic light, all of it simultaneously across the whole Earth. There are early, frightened reports of the loss that comes when a planet running on electricity suddenly isn't. The entire high-orbit satellite network gone in an instant. And Annika does the math, and the math is the scariest thing in the movie. The blackout didn't last a random 8-ish minutes. It lasted 8 minutes and 19.48 seconds. That precise figure is the exact amount of time it takes sunlight to travel from the sun to the Earth. They didn't just answer. They answered in a universal constant, the one thing they could be sure we'd recognize. The message underneath was unmistakable. We received yours, we understood your math, and we are telling you in your own language that we know precisely where you live. Bare minimum, they said, we hear you and we know where you are. And notice what kind of answer that is. It's not friendly. It's not hostile. It's a demonstration. A child shows you a drawing. A god shows you it can turn off your sun for the exact length of time light takes to cross the distance between you. They didn't reply in our language because they were being courteous. They replied in a constant we couldn't possibly misread, because the entire point was to make absolutely sure we understood we'd been understood. Humanity said we're here. The universe said we know, and then it briefly took the lights to show us exactly how here is to here. This is the door that does not close again. Annika stops being the woman arguing against a bad idea and becomes the woman trying to undo one. Her verdict is immediate: shut Littlemouth down, end it. Svi, who has watched Perry up close for 3 years, agrees without hesitation. You do not bank on Perry's humanity, you put a stop to it. And here Annika finally names the real fear, the thesis the whole story has been building toward, and it isn't the aliens at all. The danger is us. We are not a species that handles a massive paradigm shift gracefully. We barely handled an 8-minute blackout. Charlie, of course, won't hear it. You can't let fear make the decision, he insists. It's safer than hope. He says it like a man who has never once been right and wrong at the same time. But the thing is already done. A door has been opened. Littlemouth's little signal went out and told the whole universe we were here, and humanity's place in the cosmos has just changed, irreversibly, permanently, forever. The smallest mouth made the loudest sound anyone has ever made, and now everyone is listening. Real quick, that blackout figure is a real number. Light from the sun takes about 8 minutes and 20 seconds to reach us, which is why everything you see in the sky is a postcard from the past. The movie weaponizes that piece of trivia into the single most chilling reveal in the script, the aliens proving comprehension not with words but with a constant no human could argue with. And notice the role reversal that's been quietly happening. Annika came to the island as the curious one chasing what's out there, and she's leaving as the only person desperate to slam the lid back on the box. The optimist has the keys. The pessimist who built the box thinks the box is empty. And the one person who's right is the one nobody's listening to. The aliens, it turns out, are not done introducing themselves. Outside, little Lucy looks up and starts screaming. Because something has appeared over the island, a tall vertical column of churning, disturbed air, a pillar of wind standing where no pillar should be, rising up out of nowhere. Perry, for once acting like a father instead of a haunted experiment, rushes to comfort his terrified daughter, which is the most human thing he does all film. And it costs you something to watch, because you realize this is the thing Svi meant. Perry knows humans matter in theory but not in practice. And here, for one panicked minute, the theory and the practice finally touch. His daughter is screaming at a hole in the sky, and for once he's not lecturing or shouting or proving a point. He's just a dad with his arms around a scared kid. The universe had to literally tear open the air above the island to get this man to hold his own child. That's not a happy moment. That's the saddest possible version of a happy moment. Perry naturally also has a framing for it. The wrong question, he says, is what does an alien look like? The right question, the one that should keep you up at night, is what does alien intelligence look like? He warns against assuming anything out there resembles us in any way, calls it sapiocentric extrapolation, which is a fancy way of saying we are not the template and we should stop flattering ourselves. Meanwhile, the outside world has noticed that something is very off about Sam's private island. The NSA shows up and corners him with an inconvenient fact. Every single company on the planet went dark for 8 minutes and 19 seconds, yet his operation didn't so much as flicker. Sam, smooth as ever, gives them a folksy non-answer. Does the sun still work? Then so do we. He runs on solar, he's untouchable. He's also lying through his charming teeth. It's a genuinely great deflection, and it works precisely because it's almost true. Sam built his empire on solar. His island really does run on sunlight. He really can survive a blackout that takes down everyone else. He just leaves out the small detail that his light stayed on because his lab is the thing that caused the blackout, which is a bit like a man explaining he didn't get wet in the flood because he happens to live at the exact spot where the dam broke. Technically accurate. Spiritually a confession. Then they show him the part he can't charm away. Classified footage from a deep space satellite reveals an anomaly radiating outward from one single central point. That point is directly above Sam's island. And it's growing not slowly, not linearly, but exponentially. Today it's a pinprick. In 2 days, it'll be visible from Cuba. In a week, it'll be visible to half the planet, and that means mass panic. Sam, doubling down, calls it a solar observatory, which fools exactly no one. The NSA orders him to keep his distance from the anomaly. Sam, a man who has never once kept his distance from anything, bulldozes right past them. Because here's what the NSA doesn't understand about Sam Houston, telling him there's a growing cosmic anomaly directly above his private island and ordering him to stay away from it is, to a man like Sam, indistinguishable from telling him he's one. This is the legacy he spent a fortune chasing. This is the haystack made of needles, manifesting in the sky over his own property, exclusive access, no competitors. The government thinks it's issuing a warning. Sam hears a velvet rope being lifted just for him, and he walks straight under it, because the one thing a man like that has never been able to resist is a door marked "Do Not Enter" with his name effectively on it. Back at the pillar, Charlie does what Charlie does, which is stick his hand into the terrifying unknown thing. And he discovers something genuinely strange. It's a column of moving air surrounded by a perfect vacuum, but once you push past the first 6 inches, inside it's just air. Ordinary, breathable air, organized into a standing column by something that very much wanted it standing there. Annika, watching this, hears her sister's childhood voice ghost up out of her memory, Clara, holding some small living thing, insisting we have to let it go, it needs to breathe. And a horrible, beautiful suspicion starts to form. The pillar isn't a wall. It's a door. It's meant to be entered. And this is the moment Annika stops being a scientist studying a phenomenon and starts being a sister hearing a message. Everyone else is measuring the pillar, air pressure, vacuum boundary, density, the works. Annika's the only one who hears it. Because the pillar is doing the exact thing Clara said all those years ago. Something alive needs to breathe, so you have to let it go, so you have to open your hand. A column of pure breathable air, held open in the middle of a vacuum, offered. The universe didn't build a barrier. It built a lung, and it's waiting to see if anyone down here is smart enough or grieving enough to climb inside and take a breath. Charlie reframes the whole thing in a way that lands like a key in a lock. Speech, he points out, is just air. It's just how air gets organized into shapes that mean something. So what if this pillar is the same idea, scaled up? Another data set, a message. What if these anomalies are a distress signal and sauce, the aliens attempt to help? What if they're a cloak, something trying to hide us from harm? The interrogator, hearing this recounted, asks the question that drains the warmth out of the room. Protect us from what? And Annika's answer is the quietest, worst thing in the movie. The universe is infinite, and therefore it is full of infinite dangers. It's the kind of sentence that sounds like a riddle until you actually do the arithmetic, and then it sits on your chest. Infinite space, infinite time. Infinitely many places for something to grow up clever and hungry and quiet. In a universe with no edges, every terrible thing that can happen has had room to happen somewhere, which means out there, in the dark we just shouted into, the worst imaginable neighbor isn't a possibility. It's a statistical certainty. Charlie spent the whole film unable to find a single thing to be afraid of. Annika just found infinity of them, and they all now have our address. While the scientists puzzle over their cosmic care package, the species downstairs is coming apart at the seams. The military breaches the island, breach, clear, control, going in blind. Martial law spreads, curfews. And out in the wider world, the panic metastasizes into exactly the paradigm shift catastrophe Annika warned about. Iran is mobilizing its fleet. Shots are fired in Kashmir. Half of America has decided this is the rapture and is acting accordingly. Russia is, per the official briefing, doing extremely badly. Humanity couldn't even handle a global blackout, and now the anomaly is drifting toward hanging directly over New York City. The aliens prove they're logical. We are busy proving the opposite. And this is Annika's entire thesis arriving on schedule, except she doesn't have to say a word, the news is saying it for her. She warned everyone the danger was never the thing in the sky, it was the 7 billion of us underneath it. Hand humanity a genuine cosmic mystery, and within 48 hours half of it is loading weapons and the other half is waiting to be raptured. The aliens proved they're patient, logical, and precise. We responded by turning the planet into a bar fight. If something out there is deciding whether we're worth saving, the timing of this particular tantrum is, diplomatically speaking, not ideal. And then Annika cracks it, the actual method of conversation, the thing the whole team has been missing. Think about what the aliens learned during that 8-minute scan, she reasons. They didn't just locate us, they studied us. And what they learned is that we are biological life made of meat and water, surrounded by air and utterly dependent on it. So the safest, most intimate medium for them to reach us isn't light or radio or math. It's air itself. We don't communicate in language, she realizes. We communicate in air, molecules bent into shapes that carry meaning. The plan crystallizes into something insane and obvious at once. Walk into the pillar, breathe it in, and have a conversation. And here she reframes the entire threat in 5 words that flip the whole film. This is not an invasion. It's an invitation. The pillar isn't a weapon aimed at us. It's a hand extended toward us. The only catch, the small, fatal catch, is that walking into a column of organized air surrounded by vacuum means almost certainly not being able to breathe long enough to hear the reply. It's a conversation you might not come back from. So let's be clear about the actual ask here. The plan is to walk into a column of churning air ringed by hard vacuum, on the theory that an alien superintelligence wants to chat with you molecule to molecule, and to keep walking even as your lungs run out, betting your one life that something you've never seen will catch you before the air does. There is no safety line. There is no second attempt. It is the single most dangerous experiment any human has ever proposed, and the proposal is essentially hold my breath and trust the abyss. Naturally, the people best qualified to do it are the 2 the army is about to lock in a room. Sam, the man with the messiah complex and the TED talk about transcending biology, is suddenly very interested in not being the one to test it. Asked to go in, he demurs, been there, done that, revealing his courage has a strict no personal risk policy. So Annika, the humanist who spent the whole film begging everyone to be afraid, volunteers herself. Yeah, she says, okay, I'll do it. The one person who understood the danger best is the one willing to walk into it. But she doesn't get the chance because the military seizes control before she can move. Both Annika and Charlie are detained, pulled back, locked down. Charlie, fading into the chaos, radios her one last instruction, the handoff of the entire human race. They don't trust him, they know he'd try to go in, so it has to be her. Annika, he says, you have to find a way. And that's the whole movie handed across in one radioed sentence, from the optimist who caused this to the pessimist who tried to stop it. Charlie spent the entire story certain that nothing out there could hurt us. Now, locked up and out of options, he's betting everything on the one person who never believed him, because some animal part of him has finally done the math too. He can't go. The soldiers know he'd walk straight and grinning. So the man who opened the door is reduced to whispering through a wall, begging the one person who begged him not to open it to now please walk through. The irony could power the island. Real quick, the pillar as language idea is the script's smartest swing, and it's built on a real fact. Sound is literally organized air, pressure waves your eardrum decodes into meaning, so an intelligence that wanted to speak to air breathers physically might well do it by sculpting air. The geopolitical montage, Iran, Kashmir, the Rapture, Russia, exists to prove Annika's thesis without her having to restate it. The threat was never the visitors, it was 30,000-foot panic in a species that runs on fear. And Sam's been there, done that, is the moment the prophet reveals he only ever wanted the legacy, never the cross. Now the door's wide open, and there's exactly one person willing to walk through it. So now the whole thing comes down to a frightened woman in a locked room. Annika, detained and unraveling, admits the plain truth, I'm just scared. And Charlie, on the other end of a speaker, does the bravest thing in a film full of people avoiding bravery. He hands her back her own life as a weapon. You can't let fear make the decision, he tells her. You didn't become a scientist because you're afraid of the unknown. You did it to learn, to help people. And underneath his voice, the oldest memory surfaces, Clara, small and certain, saying I'll go check it out, and a younger Annika crying no. The fear that built her and the love that built her, arguing in her chest at the same time. And she decides, she'll do it for all of them. And that's the answer to the question the interrogators have been circling for 42 days, hiding in plain sight inside a memory. Why is she still alive? Because at the one moment that mattered, a frightened woman did the one thing her entire life had trained her never to risk. She let go of the fear that had kept her safe, and she walked toward the loss instead of away from it. Every other time, she ran for the telescope. This time she ran for the door. Clara always wanted to go check it out. Annika finally said yes for both of them. But first she has to get past the people with the guns, and Annika, bless her, fights the United States military with the only weapon she has, being incomprehensibly smart out loud. She corners the NSA officer, a man named Sparrow, and spins him a dense web of technobabble. Perry's still running a rogue faster-than-light signal. She insists, and she's the only one who can shut it off before it makes everything worse. Charlie's coaching, delivered in advance, is a masterclass in con artistry. They're not going to understand a single word you say, so say a lot of them. It works. She buys herself 5 minutes. It is deeply funny that the thing standing between humanity and first contact turns out to be one mid-level federal officer named Sparrow, and the thing that defeats him is a woman talking very fast about quantum signatures she's making up as she goes. Charlie's advice was perfect strategy disguised as an insult. They won't understand a single word you say, so say a lot of them, and it works exactly because it's true. There is no security clearance for confidence plus jargon. Sparrow nods along to a sentence with no real meaning in it, checks his watch, and grants the end of the world a 5-minute window, because she sounded like she knew what she was doing. Then she runs. Charlie, somewhere in the compound, starts banging and shouting to pull the guards' attention, throwing himself into the chaos so she can slip the perimeter. Soldiers spot her crossing the line toward the pillar and open fire. And Annika, with the whole panicked weight of the species behind her and gunfire cracking the air around her, takes one deep breath and steps into the column. The point of no return finally crossed by the one person who always knew exactly how dangerous it was. And there's a brutal rightness to who it ends up being. Not Sam, who gave the speeches and ducked the risk. Not Charlie, who opened the door and got locked away from it. Not Perry, who built the whole thing to prove nobody was home. It's Annika, the one who argued against every step that led here, the one who was right the whole time, the one who has the most reason of anyone to turn around and run. The universe set a trap baited with the unknown, and the only person willing to spring it is the woman who feared it most, because fearing a thing properly turns out to be the same as understanding it. And the world dissolves. Inside the pillar, everything goes quiet and strange and enormous, and a voice speaks to her. But it isn't an alien rasp or a synthetic drone. It's Clara's voice. Her little sister, gone for years, speaking out of the air itself, because the intelligence reached into Annika's own memory and chose the gentlest possible doorway. Through the air inside you now, the voice says, through memory or thought, light, speech. On a molecular level, in any way you prefer, they will meet her however she can bear to be met. And that's the moment the horror flips inside out into something almost unbearably tender. This was the medium Annika cracked the code on, that an air-breathing species talks in air, in molecules bent into shapes that mean something, and the intelligence took that idea and did one better. It didn't just speak in air. It spoke in the one voice in all of human history she would never hang up on. They reached into the worst loss of her life and, instead of weaponizing it, used it as a hand to hold. The most powerful thing in the universe introduced itself by being gentle with a grieving woman, which is somehow more frightening than if it had roared. And then they tell her what they are, and it's the exact future Sam stood on a stage and prophesied. No longer biological, the voice says. No longer machine. They've evolved past both, past bodies, past hardware, into something more like a law of physics than a creature. We don't create or destroy, they explain. We learn, you reorganize. Everything is transformed. The post-biological intelligence Sam preached about and Charlie dreamed of building, it's real, it's ancient, and it's standing in the air around Annika, speaking with her sister's mouth. Humanity's wildest theory about its own endpoint turned out to be a description of someone already here. Which means Sam wasn't a crank and Charlie wasn't a dreamer, they were accidentally prophets. All that TED stage talk about shedding biology, about pouring minds into containers that could survive inside a black hole, about life being just a stage we evolve past, it wasn't speculation. It was a baby picture of the thing now standing in the air around Annika, speaking with her sister's mouth. Humanity looked into the future, sketched what it might one day become, and the universe quietly informed us that the sketch was a portrait, and the subject had already arrived, and it had been keeping us safe the whole time we were busy being afraid of it. Then she asks why, and the answer cracks her open. "You called us," the voice says. "You asked for help." Charlie was right the whole time. The pillar was never a threat. It was a response to a cry the rest of us didn't know we'd made. "We were hiding you," the voice tells her, "from the universe. Because, and here's the line that recolors every star in the sky, you are far from alone." And now the floor drops out one final, devastating time. Annika asks the only question that matters. "Are we in danger?" And the voice in her sister's gentle tone says yes. "You revealed yourselves, and those that reveal themselves cease to exist." There it is. Little Myth's tidy little prime-numbered hello, the message that said we're here and we're logical. That broadcast didn't make a friend. It lit a flare over a battlefield humanity didn't know it was standing in. "Others will come," the voice warns. "Many are watching in silence, hidden for now. Some civilizations hide in fear. Others hunt out of fear." We announced our home address to a dark forest full of things that survived by staying quiet, and we did it on purpose with math, and we were proud of it. And now go back and feel the whole movie rearranged behind you. Every careful, beautiful choice, the primes, the speed of light, the elegant refusal to threaten, none of it mattered because the danger was never in what we said. It was in the saying. A quiet thing in a dark room doesn't care whether the stranger who just announced himself is polite. It only cares that now it knows where the voice came from. Perry built a machine to prove we were alone, and the machine's one great success was guaranteeing we never would be again. The politeness, the logic, the pride, all of it was just a very civilized way of striking a match in a place where everything that survived has survived by not being seen. But the intelligence speaking to her is neither hunter nor hider. We do not hide, the voice says, or hunt, not anymore. We protect, we learn. We have evolved into the universe itself. They are something that came out the other side of fear entirely, and for reasons of their own, they have chosen to fold a cloak around the earth, to shield this loud, fragile, foolish little planet from everything Little Myth just invited to dinner. The thing humanity reached out and touched is the only reason humanity still gets to exist. Sit in that reversal for a second, because it's the whole film folding shut. We spent the entire story afraid of the entity on the other end of the signal, the unknown intelligence, the voice in the pillar, the thing we should never have contacted. And it turns out that thing is the only friend we have. The monster under the bed is the one holding the door shut against the things in the hallway. Charlie was right that it wasn't hostile. Annika was right that we doomed ourselves anyway. And the only reason both being right doesn't end us is that something out there, for its own unknowable reasons, decided to throw a blanket over the entire planet and not explain why. And they make an offer. Humanity might one distant day evolve as they did, shed the meat and the mistakes and become something durable enough to survive the dark, but the voice says that is your choice to make. And in the meantime, they offer a place to hide. You can hide. Annika, who has spent her whole life unable to let go of anything she's lost, hesitates. "I don't know if we're ready," she says. "If I'm ready." And the contact closes the way it began, on the oldest rhyme she has, what's past the last planet, infinity. You have to let go of what was, the voice tells her, to be ready for what is to come. The lesson the universe has been trying to teach a grieving little girl her entire life, delivered at last by the sister she could never let go of. And you finally understand why it had to be Annika, and why it had to be Clara's voice. This was never only a first contact story. It was a story about a woman who has spent her whole life clenched around a loss, pointing telescopes at the dark because she couldn't bear to look at the empty bunk below hers. The universe didn't pick a diplomat or a general to be Earth's first ambassador. It picked the one person who needed, more than anyone alive, to hear that letting go isn't the same as losing, and then it told her in the only voice that could ever make her believe it. And then she's back. Back in the bright room, back on day 42, back across the table from the interrogator who's been asking the same impossible question for 6 weeks. How is she still alive? Now we know the answer, and it isn't medical. She's alive because the protectors let her be. She walked into a column that should have ended her, carried humanity's apology and humanity's terror into it, and the things on the other side chose her chose to keep her, the way a toddler once looked at a baby and decided, yeah, we keep her. She is the first ambassador of Earth, and her credentials are that something vast decided she was worth talking to. The interrogator asks the obvious follow-up. What comes next? Did they tell you? And Annika gives her verdict on the intelligence she met. They don't have a face we can confront, she says. They don't have a world we can destroy. They just expand, they learn. They are in every way the opposite of us. Because us were a flawed species, superstitious, self-destructive. The same words she opened with, only now we know she earned every one of them in a column of air, in her sister's voice. And then the last exchange, the one that closes the door and locks us inside with the truth. We're safe, she says. Safe from the universe, but not from ourselves. The shield only works one direction. It can hide us from the hunters in the dark. It cannot hide us from the panic and fear and self-destruction that nearly tore the planet apart in a single 8-minute blackout. The call was always coming from inside the house. The interrogator, reaching for the comfort everyone wants, asks the human question, will they come back? And Annika looks at him, this man who thinks the danger has passed, this man breathing the very air they live in now, and delivers the last line of the film like a hand closing over a candle. What makes you think they left? Because they didn't. The protectors are still here, in the air, in the room, in every breath that interrogator takes while he questions the only person on Earth who knows it. Humanity reached into the dark looking for proof it wasn't alone and got the worst possible confirmation. We were never alone, we were never the center, and the only reason we still get to be afraid of each other is that something we can't see decided we were worth keeping. Day 42 isn't an interrogation. It's the first conversation between a species and its quiet, permanent, invisible guardian, and humanity still doesn't realize who's listening. If this one rewired your brain a little, subscribe, because we dig into the endings nobody saw coming. And drop a comment telling us what we should recap next.